Once again, welcome everyone to the Temple of Kriya Yoga and to the Babaji Festival today. Today we're honoring the Kriya lineage, as Swami Pranananda talked about earlier. And I want to honor my guru, Goswami Kriyananda, not just as a mystic and a light on the path of Kriya Yoga, but also as a master astrologer. He felt that the study of your karma, as reflected by your natal horoscope, was very important. He also felt that prediction, which is really the timing of when your karma manifests, is vitally important.
Closer, we can't hear you.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Karma doesn't happen all at once. You don't get, when you're born, you don't get all your karma all at once. You have karma of this lifetime, but it doesn't happen at one time. It happens as you progress through life. And some of this karma is the karma of you as an individual, and some of it is the karma of that we all share together at various times. But it happens in a predetermined way that you can see through astrology. Astrology shows you the type of karma you're likely to encounter and when. Yoga and other wonderful spiritual traditions gives us the tools to soften our karma and to solve life's problems as they arise. So today I'm going to talk about the planetary positions for the year ahead, and I'll give you a list of what we've got coming up. Today we're going to talk about, just briefly, about today's full moon. Today is a full moon tonight. We're going to talk about the long-term cycles of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune in Pisces, Uranus as it makes its ingress or transition from Aries to Taurus, and Jupiter, which is in Scorpio now and is going to move later on this year into Sagittarius. So we have a lot of interesting and wonderful things going on this year. So I believe that it's important to focus on the new moon and full moon, always good times for meditation and reflection on what's going on. There's a full moon tonight. It's in the sign Scorpio. And Scorpio is a symbol of diving deeper into your subconscious mind. So it's an energy that you can use to reflect on the past 2 weeks. Now, the past 2 weeks for a lot of people I know have been challenging. You might even say extremely challenging. So you want to think about using the tools of meditation and reflection to examine the past 2 weeks this evening. To think about how you have handled the challenges of the past 2 weeks. How you've handled the experiences. What resources did you call on? What core values sustained you? Those problem-solving skills, those resources, and core values will help you in the months ahead, because the last 2 weeks touched on the next aspect that I'm going to talk about, which is the planet Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. So over the last 2 weeks, there was a Saturn stationary point in Capricorn, and then there was a Pluto stationary point in Capricorn. And Saturn, if you think about it as a planet of stability and tradition, is one type of energy. And Pluto, as the planet of transformation and even revolution, is another type of energy. So when you get the two of them together, they aren't exactly friendly with each other. That's not a necessarily compatible energy when they're close together. So over the course of the next 2 years, Pluto is very slow moving as we see it from Earth, and Saturn is a little bit faster. So Saturn over the next 2 years is going to be approaching the planet Pluto. This conjunction, when they both come together in 2020, happens every 40 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit, actually a lot more about this conjunction. But why is it important to think about far-off aspects and prepare for them? You don't have to answer that. That's a question I'm just throwing out there. But why is this so important, especially to those of us in Kriya Yoga? Because when you prepare and understand the nature of these forces, these karmic forces, you can begin to soften them. It's like our job. Our job is to soften as Kriya Yogis, is to soften our karma, or as people, as humans. We want to attain the balance and the skills to do our best with these energies and to use them in the best possible way. We want to learn the lessons. In other words, we want to be awake and aware in our life so that we can pay attention to what's happening and learn from what is happening. We don't want to just be a ping pong ball and experience and never understand why we're being smacked around by life, or why why good things are happening. We don't know unless we pay attention. So to reflect and pay attention so that we can use this energy in a positive way. And also to understand that if you can picture that the planets go around the sun, or as we see them from Earth, they appear to be circling around us. They're going in a cycle. There's a cycle. It's here, the planet's here, it goes around. It might be 40 years, but eventually it comes back again. Or it might be like the moon, it might be a month. Or it might be like Mercury, and be 88 days, or whatever it is. Saturn is 2.5 years. All these planets have a different cycle, but they come back again. And so we have the wonderful opportunity to experience that energy again and use it in the best possible way, hopefully. But if you know that they repeat, astronomy and astrology come together and can tell you when they're going to happen. So the Saturn and Pluto both had station retrogrades in the past 2 weeks. So hopefully you can reflect on this and learn something about it. And then these situations that you experienced over the last couple of weeks will become intense again, particularly this September of 2018 and the last 2 weeks of April next year in 2019. So the symbols of Saturn and Pluto coming together. I like to use symbols from nature, or something visual that you can imagine. And one of them is the earthquake, and the other one is the volcano. In other words, stability and transformation coming together. So on the earthquake, the ground shakes and trembles. And so those times, the foundation of your life and faith are called into question. And with the volcano, emotions are suppressed, but they're seething underneath like a volcano, and then Saturn sits on the top of them, putting some pressure. How long can that go on? So you could have some self-control, but eventually the cap blows off the volcano and things erupt. So you have to see that if you experience the symbolic earthquake, this is symbolic. It doesn't mean everybody's going to be sitting there and the ground's going to shake, but think of it as a symbol. So if you experience a symbolic earthquake, what resources do you have that can sustain you through a challenging time? If you are prone to being a volcano, I'm not looking at anybody here. If you're prone to being a volcano, what can you do to constructively let off steam, for example? And at the same time, if you're not the volcano, but you can see that there's people and situations around you that are like a volcano, maybe you should avoid those situations or people. Actually, there's thousands of people who actually live near volcanoes, live near live volcanoes. And there's people who build their houses on the fault line where an earthquake is likely to happen. You can choose not to be one of those people, symbolically or actually. And if you're a volcano, honestly, over time, this is the key. Over time, meditation and the practices of yoga can help you to soften, let go of your anger, and find peace. Now, used wisely, the energy of Saturn and Pluto together can bring focus, concentration, self-discipline, and steadiness of purpose to build something that can transform your world. So that's your positive symbol for Saturn and Pluto. Let's talk about Uranus moving into the sign Taurus. So my symbol for that, one of the symbols that I like for that is the Wizard of Oz. You know what happened to Dorothy? A tornado, or cyclone, they called it in the book, in the movie. A cyclone came and it picked up her house and took it to a land that was entirely different from her own. So the transit of Uranus going through the sign Taurus, by the time you're done with it, you're going to look around and go like, where am I? And it's not going to happen on May 15th, the exact date that Uranus goes into Taurus, but you want to think about Uranus as being like a technology, change, chaos, perhaps, creativity. But what happened, one of the many, many, many things that happened over the last 7 years as Uranus went through Aries that's changed our lives is the way that we use our smartphones. And if you're not familiar with sitting at a table of people that you think you're going to go out and talk to and have them all be like this with their phones in front of their face, that's when all of a sudden you realize you're in an entirely different world than the one that you were in 7 years ago. So there's going to be some changes that take place as Uranus goes into the sign Taurus. And it'll be there until 2025. So Uranus symbolizes chaos, lightning strikes of creativity, and rules electronic technology. So it's also the urge for change and freedom. But when Uranus was in Aries, which is a fire sign, that electric energy moved unimpeded. Lots of creativity going off in lots of different directions. And Uranus in Taurus is an earth sign. So I think there's going to be some impedance, as they call it in electricity. There's going to be some blocks to creativity, or maybe creativity will have to be harnessed by practicality. So that's a way to think about it. Take your creativity. You may not be able to do everything in the whole wide world with it, but you can make it practical and use it in a practical way. Some people think that Uranus, the other astrologers have been looking at this, and they think that Taurus, which is the sign of finance and money and possessions, that there'll be new currency. We're already talking about cryptocurrencies now, right? But new types of currency, bank regulation, and financial products that used to be secure are now shaken up. That's what I've seen other astrologers talk about. But when you think about karma, you want to think about what is your security? What makes you feel secure? And if it gets shaken up, how do you reestablish your inner security? Can you be flexible about your possessions? And generally, how is your flexibility? That's what you want to think about right now. Are you making the changes that you need to make right now? Are you making them right now? In other words, are you moving forward with the changes that you need to make in your life? You know what you need to change. We all have our New Year's resolutions or whatever we're trying to change. Are you moving forward with them? And the reason I ask you that is because Uranus going into Taurus will force the changes. So changes are much better when you do them yourself and activate them yourself. When Uranus makes a change for you, it's usually a chaotic change. Uranus is chaos. They're unexpected changes. And then you don't realize until afterwards that you really did need to make that change. But it's not as much fun when Uranus makes it for you as when you are actually able to do that for yourself. Just some things to think about. And lastly, think about your core values before before May 15th, or as Uranus goes through Taurus. You'll be called on to reflect on your core values. Should you change them, or should you resist the change? It's just something to think about. These are questions, karmic questions to think about. In yoga, we have a lot of core values, like the yamas and niyamas. Like nonviolence is a core value, or truthfulness, or contentment, or attunement to the divine. These are all core values. You want to think about, what are your core values? And when they're challenged by karmic things that happen, do you retain them, or do you let them go? Interesting to think about. I'll give you one more interesting thing to think about, because this may challenge core values. People with Uranus going into Taurus, it's just a thought, will be more and more likely to choose cyber augmentation. So right now we have our phones, they're in our hands, we put them up to our ear, but 7 years from now people are going to be saying, oh, you still have a phone? Mine's right here in my head. So just things to think about. And Neptune is not moving into Pisces. Neptune is in the middle, smack dab in the middle of Pisces. And Neptune is the home sign for, Neptune is in its home for Pisces. Pisces is the home sign for Neptune. And it's going to be there until 2025. It travels through each sign for 14 years, approximately. Neptune in Pisces, that we've been going through already for 7 years, is a period of time when the boundaries between the earth plane and the higher planes are more permeable. It can be easier to meditate while Neptune's in Pisces than previously when Neptune was in Aquarius, and later on when Neptune goes into Aries. So this is a really, really, really good time to meditate. So keep doing that. The symbol for Neptune in Pisces is you floating on a warm ocean, totally comfortable and totally relaxed. And as you float on the ocean, you feel as if you're less an individual and more a part of the ocean. Our Param Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, he used this metaphor and wrote a whole song about it. I am a bubble, make me the sea. I am a bubble, make me the sea. He meditated. I was there once in Encinitas, where he had his retreat house, and I stood on the edge of the ocean, and I really felt connected to that whole idea of we're apart from the ocean and part of the ocean at the same time. And as Kriyananda said, we're a part of life, we're not apart from life. So think about floating on the ocean, being part of the ocean. Wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. Wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. This is the bhakti path. Neptune in Pisces is the path of devotion, the path of attunement to the divine. And with this Neptune position, you can use art and music to go deeper into your spiritual practice. Let's talk for just 1 minute about Jupiter and Scorpio, and Jupiter going into Sagittarius on November 8th. So Jupiter spends 12 months in one sign, And in Scorpio, Jupiter expands your awareness, again, of your subconscious mind, like we talked about with the full moon, and expands your psychic awareness. So this is a wonderful time to study mysticism and study astrology, study the inner workings of the mind, study your own psychology. And when Jupiter moves into Sagittarius later this year, Jupiter always expands something. So when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, it expands your philosophy and expands higher learning. So this is a wonderful time to learn and study. So thinking about this, what would you like to learn and study in the year ahead, in 2018 and 2019? It'll come much easier to you. It's a wonderful time, Jupiter and Sagittarius, to learn languages, to learn foreign languages or inner languages or the language of astrology. So to wrap it up, think about that over time, there's a time involved here. Over time, the practice of meditation and the other tools and techniques found in yoga and other spiritual teachings can help you to build inner resources to sustain you through difficult times, like earthquakes, and move you toward nonviolence and the ability to release, not suppress, but release the steam of anger and frustration in some sort of harmonious way, if you're the volcano. These techniques can help you to be more flexible in body and mind, in order to be an even better problem solver when life brings change. And the study of astrology, so I'm recommending the study of astrology to all of you, will give you an expanded perspective on life and the world around you. Observe your life and journal, means write it down, journal your major events and major emotionalities, to understand the patterns of your karma that repeat. And just know that your karma can be softened and things can get better. Most holy divine, saints and sages of all times and all religions, holy Kriya lineage, may we be blessed that each and every year we grow wiser and happier and closer to the source of all that is. Om Tat Sat Om. Namaste.